I'm showing the man respect.
Okay, we are good to go, Chairman.
Hey, I'll call the Clinton County Industrial Development Agency May 13th, 2024 meeting to order. Declare a quorum and waive the reading of the notice of the meeting as well as the minutes, and ask for a motion to approve those. Any discussions? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Molly?
Okay, so today we have a presentation by Beth Gillis. She is the director of the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board. As you may recall, we had a proposal from one of the towns to potentially look at their particular site, the Miramar location. It was the desire of this board that we were going to look at a housing feasibility that would be more county encompassing. So working with Beth, the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board has done a numerous amount of different studies and worked with a couple of different consulting groups to present a Lake Champlain Lake George region housing study. What this would do is actually create a feasibility study to identify several locations. So I'm not going to steal her thunder, so I will let her take it away from here.
You nailed it, Molly. That was so. I think, as everyone knows, we put out a housing study last year for counties. So it was covering Franklin, Essex, Clinton, and Hamilton. And it really was a study and a strategy. So it looked at the current housing crisis that we're having within the Adirondacks and the North Country region for that middle income housing. So we're looking at the 80 to 150, 200% AMI, depending on where you are in the region. And it helped identify 10 initiatives, 35 strategies to address the housing issues within the region. Now we're kind of looking at the next step. So we know what the issues are. We know the AMI that we're targeting. We know how many units approximately, we're looking at having either built or rehabbed within the 4-county region. And so in talking with Molly and some of the town supervisors from Clinton County, we thought a good next step for the county would be to do a market study. And so the difference between what we did in a market study is, we did a study and a strategy. A market study is really going to look at the market within the county and where units can be absorbed and at what price point. We don't want to move forward in building units that no one's ever going to occupy because they're either too far away from an employment center or they're not economically feasible for the families within the region and the money that they're making and what they should be spending on their housing. So we worked with Molly to get 3 quotes. I read the quotes. I thought that, and I think Molly said they were in your packets. My opinion is I think Camoin Associates came in with what we asked them to do, which is a countywide market analysis, an inventory of vacant and rehab properties. We did find within our public outreach that the communities within the region preferred 2-to-1 rehabs over new builds. I'm unsure if that already exists in the county, so that's something that we can double check before we, ask someone to redo it. But then we also asked for up to 5 site-specific analyses. So, and they actually also suggested doing a financial feasibility component to those as well. So again, before you get into the pre-development and the development of a site, just making sure that it's financially responsible and that the numbers all work. So that's what we came up with. Molly, did you want to add anything?
Maybe Beth, if you could just talk about why you felt Camoin's proposal was a little bit more, maybe talk about their background in this realm. That would be helpful.
Yeah, so Camoin is, they have a subsection that works on housing specifically. They are the consultants that we worked with on our housing study, and not saying that gives them any more credence. But I felt that based on the scope that we had put together with Molly and given to the consultants, they were the ones that really understood where we were at in what we needed to do. We've already done a lot of the public outreach and the interviews and the background and that kind of stuff. And we've spoken to town supervisors. We know where there's interest in working on housing related issues. Now the next step is to figure out, is that financially feasible in those, specific places and countywide. So we just, so I thought that they just did a better job of coming in with what we asked them to come in with. And they actually also, their task 5, they suggested, it was not something that we had asked for, including a financial feasibility component to test those concepts and then modify them if we need to. So I think that that's also an important step when we're, if we're going to put our time and effort into working on housing developments, whether through a nonprofit developer or a for-profit developer, however it works. Again, we just want to make sure that it is financially feasible.
And just for the board's purposes, we're not deciding which one we want today. This is just an opportunity for you to review them, ask questions that you may have. Well, at the next meeting, we'll probably talk about which one we want to move forward with, if we want to move forward.
So this tells us what?
This would tell us what sites are available in Clinton County that would make good housing sites.
Specify what kind of house.
I believe so. Beth?
Yes. Yep. The price points and the type of housing that the market can absorb. We don't want to build things that are going to end up being vacant. So it's really important to understand that.
So will it tell us why nobody develops now? Because that would save Mr. Cashman a whole day if we could give him that answer.
We found in the work that we're doing that pre-development costs are a huge stopping block for developers. So if developers know that they're going to make a bunch of money off of a development, they will upfront those pre-development costs. They will hold on to mortgages and consulting fees for a year to get a project site up and running. It's not that easy up here, and it's not that black and white profitable in the North Country. And so we've actually been working with a lot of nonprofit developers to see if we can get the pre-development done and have them come in as the developers. And it takes out that component of, it just takes out that for-profit component that I think is a stopping block for a lot of private developers. I'm not saying all private developers, but I'm just saying in certain instances.
And this, I mean, it's not necessarily, the study wouldn't come back and say, oh, you could just build all Section 8 housing, right?
Right. No. We're looking at a price point. So the majority of HCR programs are for 80% and below AMI. Some of them go up to 120% and below. We're looking at the 80% to 120, 150, and in some places up to 200% AMI. And those are your childcare workers, your stewards workers, your tourism industry workers, the bus drivers, the school aides. That's the AMI that we're looking at for the studies that we're doing.
Chris, did you have a comment?
I don't. I mean, this is. I just want to make sure
sorry.
that the study is specific to Clinton County, right? We don't dip into Warren County or anything like that. It's just for Clinton, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
So is this study going to tell us that single family homes would be better here, or is it more geared towards Section 8 housing?
My hope is that it would tell me that single family homes is where they would be needing to go, or what we do need. It's going to tell us what we need. I would be shocked to find out that we need more Section 8 housing.
Okay, I mean, I just want to kind of what John was saying, what are we getting out of this? I mean, we're looking at Miramar.
Right.
So is the study going to say, yes, housing will look good there? I mean, or this would be the cost to tear that down and this is what it would take to.
I think it's twofold, right? Because it's going to look at what sites would make good for good housing, but then it would talk about the ability to actually rehab those sites.
Okay, so is there an advanced and you might have touched on this, is there an advantage to the developers going through all this where it is cost effective for them to move forward? Is there, do they gain an advantage by you doing this?
Do private developers gain an advantage from this study? Is that what you're asking?
My question, yes.
Not necessarily. I think it's more where we're working in the government and nonprofit world where we need to fill in those gaps that the private developers are not going to come in and fill themselves.
Okay, so are we hoping to have state investment into these spots that we're doing?
Yeah, state and federal investment into the spots. Yeah, or if we can do the so if we can, and we'll just use Miramar as an example, figure out what kind of housing should go in Miramar. If we get grant funding to do the pre-development and get it all basically shovel ready to go, one of the potential paths is to hand that off to a private developer and say, hey, we did all the hard work, we did all the permitting, the community's on board, everybody loves it, will you just build it? And, in talking to private developers, that would be really helpful for them. They would appreciate that background work done.
State federal funding, would that allow that? Would they come in to do all that so you can hand it off to a private developer?
Yes.
They would.
The planning work.
It's essentially similar to what was done with Prime, right? Like site work was done, state money was given, and Prime was going to be the private developer of that.
Okay. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
understand that.
Well, I agree with you, Joey. It has a purpose. That's what you're looking for.
Right,
Right.
The study has a purpose.
right.
But I don't want to just throw money at a study and throw it on the shelf, right?
Well, that's what I make sure.
And I think from an economic development perspective and IDA's perspective, as the Schluters and the Betas expand here, they need to be assured that there is the housing inventory to bring. I mean, if they're going to really build, another 1 million square foot facility and then a 300 office building, I mean, where these people are going to have to come probably from outside the region, where are they going to live, right?
Well,
So,
the question, who's gonna build this house?
right. So that's where I think we, the county and the IDA are going to have to be integral of going to selection and working with different housing developers. It's going to be a more proactive approach than I think than what we've taken in the past. But similar to what we talked about in our strategic planning of trying to get, economic development as a more holistic sort of thing that's not just about industry, right? We're not just industrial development. And my hope, probably being far too optimistic, but my hope is that the governor will see that IDAs are going to be critically necessary in building housing. They're not fans of it right now because it doesn't create jobs. So we're not going to be able to create jobs if we don't have the housing. So I'm probably being too optimistic, huh, Chris?
No, but the ABO, our favorite watchdog is recently said they're in favor of doing these types of housing studies using IDA funds for this. So it is something they're aware of. It is a valid and good use of IDA funds. So just to keep that in mind.
And I think it puts us ahead of the game, right? Because not a lot of other counties have done this as of yet, to my knowledge, Beth. And we can say, look, we've done the work to say it's available for housing. And it may come to, look at what UVM is doing. They didn't have their nurses and doctors didn't have housing, so they built it. Maybe it's working with these companies like a Schluter to say, okay, we don't have housing, help us build it. We'll give you the tax incentive, you build it. So, so that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, cool.
Any other questions, comments? Like I said, we're not deciding anything today.
Right. Great, appreciate it.
Okay. All right, Beth, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
All right. So I think we're on to the treasurer's report.
Okay. Treasurer's report, okay, for the CCIDA balance sheet, the account balance for April 30th, 24 was $99,880.51 in checking, $1,459,315.01 in the sweep account, and $226,799.57 in savings. The income statement, the organization received $37.17 in interest income. From the savings account, the organization received $160 from Elevate 518 LLC, DBA Adirondack Coast Events in administration fees. The income statement shows the expenses that were approved and paid during the month of April on the cash basis. So we've got invoices received, paid in April. Clinton County Treasurer admin fees, $13,000. Accounting, Corel tax March and April, $400. Credit card payment, meeting expense, $234.92. Marketing, Boyer Benner, first payment, $2,500. Exhibitor table and NC Chamber, $550. Bank suite, bank charge / suite fee, $10, for total expenses of $16,694.92. That is the report, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Any questions for Mark? Not, may I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Sylvie, John, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
No old business, Jim? No, we can move right on to new business.
Okay, new business.
So first up, we have to approve the North Country Alliance Local Development Corporation membership dues. Our membership dues are $500. North Country Alliance is an organization that helps kind of do gap funding. They do small business loans. All the IDAs are a member of that. So we need a motion to
I'll
approve.
make a motion to approve that.
John? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next, we have to approve our invoice from Martindale Kaiser for our audit services.
For audit service. There you get that, chief.
What's that?
It's still pretty cheap. So,
Really?
well, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sugar Sisters.
So this is the public hearing resolution. We are voting to, if you want to move to that resolution, we are voting to hold the public hearing for the proposed project by Schluter Systems.
Second, Dave. Any discussion? Comments? We had a good discussion last meeting.
We did.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Before you vote on that resolution, not that, I mean, it doesn't really pertain to the public hearing itself, but, Chris and I can talk to you afterwards about, we did speak with the taxing jurisdictions about their desires. And we'll report on that out after when we do our executive director's report.
Okay, I get a motion to approve resolution number 05-24-01, authorizing the executive director of the County of Clinton Industrial Development Agency to hold a public hearing regarding proposed project be undertaken for the benefit of Schluter Systems LP. Mark? Dave?
Yes.
Zero is excused. Mark Zeta?
Yeah.
John? Ben?
Yes.
Mary Trumpley?
Yes.
And Trent Franklin, yes. Okay,
Okay, and so we have, again, this isn't something you need to decide today, but I did want to, if you can decide today, if you decide you want to move forward with this, but we have Victoria Dooley and Russ Kinnion from AEDC here. You might remember that Victoria came to present to us one time because we were interested in potentially doing some small business loans, which Chris informed me we cannot do. So, Victoria has been creative in trying to figure out how IDAs can be partners in workforce development. And I think this might be a way where we are not precluded from doing so, and I'll let her, explain the program. And it's
Sure,
not loaning
thank-
money, Chris, it's not loaning money, I promise.
Yeah, we scrapped that at wise counsel advice. So, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm Victoria from the Adirondack Economic Development Corporation, and I've got my colleague Russ Kenyon here who can pipe up afterwards. So, thanks for having us. And just a very quick overview of what we do. I think most, if not all of you, are familiar with us, but the AEDC is really in the small business helping department. So our mission is to grow communities across our region, of which Clinton County is, of course, a key piece of that. And we work with startup businesses and existing small businesses in their growth. We are just a few kind of, alphabet soup things. We're a community development financial institution designated by the Department of the Treasury, which means that most of our time and resources we focus towards helping disadvantaged clients and entrepreneurs. We're also a small business administration, micro lender, and a state designated entrepreneurship assistance center. And, we're really in the trenches working with very small businesses across the region. So what we're proposing to you today, I heard Molly mention, the goal of your board to try to have a more holistic approach to economic development, and your mission of growing economic development and investment across the county is, great. And obviously there's a fabulous track record, but I like what Molly said, because I think that particularly for the right reasons, because of, service to all of the types of level of commerce across the county, but also in terms of state oversight and the ABO and some of the things they're looking at, we really think that that idea of holistic support in a cost-effective way makes a lot of sense for IDAs, and we're in that space for small businesses. And so we're requesting you consider support for a formal support and partnership for AEDC within the IDA's work. And I would suggest that having that as a formal partnership with the levels of support would provide an efficient way for Molly to be able to, and your whole board to be able to say, we in name support small business, and we have a structure for doing so, because we have one director and she's not able to do all of the things and has to focus on some of the bigger projects that are happening across the region. So you'd have that ability to designate out for referrals to serve small businesses. And as kind of those levels of support go up, we could strengthen that partnership in terms of boots on the ground. So Molly would have a place where she can send any small businesses and guide us towards whom she would like us to be working with in the terms of deep level of technical assistance and helping folks with business planning, helping them get through some of the hurdles of opening and stay open and expansion. So we think that there's a lot of room for support there, and that it would really well serve the IDA at a very efficient level of your resources to partner formally with us in that way. Russ, what else did I miss? What else would you add in?
Sure. I see a few familiar faces. Good morning or afternoon. As a former IDA employee, I think we're familiar with, we get sent a lot of projects that sometimes IDAs are not resourced or missioned to work with. A lot of small businesses that might require additional attention or a level of service and handholding that IDAs just are not equipped to do. And typically refer out to other partners that do have those resources. So I really believe AEDC could offer some support in that aspect of giving you a place to send businesses that need that extra attention or a little bit more technical assistance, as well as these resources would allow us to spend more time in the area in Clinton County to be able to travel there and do some workshops and host some additional support services to Clinton County.
So we'll keep it short and sweet, but love to take questions from you all.
Mike's not here, so you're getting off the hook.
I know, right? Yeah, how'd you let him miss it? I will add, I glossed over us pretty quickly, but since you guys haven't popped off questions too, but I do want to highlight, so we work in 3 kind of specific service areas for small businesses that kind of give you more thoughts, and this kind of overlaps with what Russ was saying. The first of those is technical assistance that I mentioned, which is a buzzword, but means in the trenches, again, sort of business plan development, working with clients in a one-on-one setting to help them develop their businesses or expand their businesses or whatever questions that they have in operating their small business. The second is we do have small business loans. We have 10 funds that we're able to lend to small business. So Molly's already aware of that and can send folks our direction. But it's helpful because sometimes many of the folks we're working with in a technical assistance capacity evidently, need capital, small amounts of capital. And before they go to John or when they go to John and his friends in the banking world, sometimes we can play a key role in that for very small projects and forwarding those or partner with the financial institutions. And then third, Russ also hit on this, we do training. So we do 1 to 2 annual or biannual in the depth sort of boot camp type entrepreneur courses for folks. And then we also do about once a month a training, online trainings or in-person trainings as needed to facilitate small businesses and their needs.
I think the gist of this is that, we had talked about how we can help smaller businesses. It's not that I can't refer people to AEDC now, but the way Victoria had framed it for me was that they can have a heavier presence in Clinton County than they do now if they gave more capital support. That's basically what they're asking. So I'll let my board think that over, Victoria. And then,
Okay, perfect. Great.
That was
Thank
it.
you so much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. So I don't know if that's something you guys want to discuss today or.
I mean, I might discuss it with right now.
Sure, go for it.
Some of the things that she said, doesn't the chamber do that already? Small business meetings on how to start up, how to set up, that's number 1. Number 2, we can refer them already.
We can refer them in.
Again, I'm always looking to spend money. What is our benefit to do this? Because we can do what we do it now and not spend $5,000 or $2,500 or $1,000. So what's our benefit that we can give people now?
So I'm a little conflicted on this, personally. I think the benefit I would see from it is that we get to say, look, we sponsored something in the small business arena. We're not necessarily doing that with the chamber right now. We go to the chamber events or but we're not actually sponsoring a program of sorts that fosters small business innovation or growth. So for me, it's more about saying, look, we did do this. We've tried to do this. Our name is attached to it. It gets us some marketing. On the flip side, it's something they're kind of doing already. I get what they're trying to do. But they're trying to get more capital and get their programs beefier, I guess. So they're looking at the IDAs to be their partners. Yeah.
Well, partners now.
Yes.
The-
So to be honest with you, I don't know that I would, that's why I wanted you to have a conversation, because I don't know that I feel strongly one way or the other about it.
Personally, I'm glad.
No, I was just thinking, how's the chamber, with our limited commitment, I think, we certainly work with them.
Right.
Similar circumstance, but you see this to be sort of more about funding opportunities for other people doing similar things and all of that.
It could be, yeah.
Cause that type of, and I guess, what is the pluses and minuses, of that?
Right.
Is that really what we want to get ourselves into?
Right. And that's, that's a good discussion for you as a board to decide, where you want to see yourselves going.
Well, it is the 5,000, 2,500 or 1,000 going to make a difference. I mean, it's
For us or.
yeah. I mean, it looks to me like we're just buying advertising.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're helping them because they need money. How do we benefit? I haven't seen the benefit yet.
Right.
Personally, if I'm missing something, I'm open-minded, but what am I missing? I'm not seeing the benefit.
Well, I was gonna, I didn't want to put her on the spot for how many customers or how many people
Right.
could actually use that service. Do you know that?
I don't know that.
Maybe that'd be a question as a follow-up person. The amount of involvement that they solicit and maybe the success stories we didn't hear,
Mhm.
How it worked or are they having no success? Maybe they're attributing to themselves. No much or not much in Clinton County.
I see their benefit is $5,000. What would we benefit?
So I'll just, I'll just say this. So I work a lot with the AEDC, great organization. If I've got something that doesn't fit the box, like, they can have, right? Understand.
Sure.
They do a lot of training, very good training. They have an entrepreneurship, thing and, a lot of good stuff. It isn't necessarily Clinton County specific.
Right.
Okay, that's what it's gonna be. A lot of it's virtual, so it could be anywhere, right? So technically, it's no longer Clinton County, right? Victoria likes to ask for money. Okay, perfectly honest. And, that's kind of what I see this as. But on the flip side is, I would love to see something, if she could, we talked about workforce development, right?
Right.
I didn't hear anything about workforce development in this, right? If they were to produce something specific to workforce development in Clinton County, I'd be all for it, okay? Because they have the resources to do that.
Right.
But this was just asking for money without putting any thought into it, and that's just the way I think. That's why.
Well, the other thing is too, is everyone's probably very familiar with Clinton, with the IAM, with that initiative, so on and so forth. So that would be, it'd be nice to hear if some things could be targeted from a partnership to assist in that regard, that we're already got an investment in, from the state, local, the county standpoint. So, here it is. Maybe more details as how it would be targeted, what would change going
Okay.
forward.
I think it's very fair. Yep. Like I said, they approached me. I wasn't, it's not, I like I said, I can see both. For me, it would just be kind of like checking the box, look, yes, I share similar concerns. So, so I think if I'm hearing you guys right, you want me to go back to them and see if they can produce something that shows exactly how this would affect, is there a specific
What's
program?
what I see here?
Right,
Going back to what you said, workforce development, okay, what do you specific?
right. We want a measurable, right? Like, how is this gonna impact workforce development in Clinton County?
Well, for example, our prior month's meeting with Sluder here, and I asked the question about are people available, and then comment was a little surprising. He said, well, actually, we've got some other, better opportunities, other states.
Right.
Rather than us. So how can we then maybe bolster ourselves, get
Right.
people prepared? I mean, you hear about the welding training.
Right.
Getting in those programs and things like that. Now, that's not necessarily Sluder, but
Right,
what
right.
does Sluder need? And is that, and I'm not just picking on Sluder.
No, it's a
either,
good example though. Yeah,
but other industries that were, because I've always heard that the craft industry in Clinton County was always very good because people grew up turning wrenches
right.
and doing those types of things. So it surprises me unless it's something that's so specific that the county doesn't have that unless there is no interest.
So don't we have a relationship with CV Tech for these type of jobs for our
And-
industries here?
And actually, I'll touch on that in my director's report for Clinton County, but, yes, and growing.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So it's building on that. It's just,
right,
if it goes into helping
Sure.
bolster that, I guess is what I'm saying.
That-
Probably what you're getting at. I just don't know how they fit into, other than maybe what you recommended. I mean, if it creates opportunities where it throws some things on the table that, oh, I didn't realize they were looking for assistance in this area, that's a good thing. But I don't know how many of those fall through the cracks.
I gotta be honest, I'm still struggling to understand the differentiation between AEDC and NCA, because they seem to do very, very similar things.
They do.
I'm on both of those boards, so I'm still trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's Victoria's on their board.
Yeah, I know,
NCAA board.
I know,
And there's a lot of overlap.
yeah,
They both have, NCA does more of the, farm to table type.
Yeah.
More of that kind of stuff, but, where AEC is, it's really more of the the lender. I think they, and
Right.
they're all competing for different pots of money.
Right.
So,
all right, so I will go back to her and see if there's some better measurables that can be attached to this rather than just
And
a
a plan,
blanket
and a
donation.
plan for the future, like if they
Yeah.
get a certain amount, what would the impact
Right.
be, or what do they
Yeah.
forecast the impact
Right.
would be, rather
Right.
than tell us what we want to hear.
Right. Yep, I think that's very fair. So,
Thank
no problem. All right. I don't think we have other business chairmen, so I can move into the Clinton County Economic Development update if you'd like. Okay. So a couple of things going on in Clinton County, to update you on the, BOCES project that I mentioned, Clinton County and BOCES have come to an agreement on the acreage that will be exchanged essentially. Clinton County will be selling, I think it's 17.1 acres to a not-for-profit who will develop a new BOCES center, which will have lots of this technical training, state of the art that we've just spoken about. In exchange, CVES will then sell back the county 15 acres of land that is adjacent to TDC. So almost behind it directly, like where Schoenbeck sits, directly behind it. The reason for the difference in the 2 acreage is that in that 17.1 being given to BOCES, 2.1 of that is wetlands, things that the county couldn't really do anything with anyway. So we're very grateful to see them take it. So we've also come to an agreement on we're going to build a road off of the current road that we've been constructing for the last year in the new industrial park, otherwise known as CBIG, Clinton County Business Innovation Gateway. And off of the roundabout that was built, we'll be building a 900-foot road to BOCES that will open up a couple of the parcels that we own now. BOCES is going to be a cost share in that, so it'll be a split. And it can be done much cheaper because they're doing it through this nonprofit. As far as IAM is concerned, there are now conversations being had with BOCES and CV Tech to see if that is something that they would probably be willing to take charge of, essentially. So those are good conversations that are happening. As far as economic development, I don't know that I have a whole lot else to report out for you guys for the county, but any questions? I did inform the Economic Development Committee about the Schluter project. Getting my legislators to understand how pilots really work. It's been a challenge, but I think we're getting there. So I think we're getting there. With that said, Chairman, I can move on to my executive director's report.
Well, is there
Yep.
any movement on Clinton community, the property?
Yes, sorry. Yes. So yes and no. So as you recall, we had agreed that we're going to try and conduct a feasibility study. I now have 2 in hand. I have another interview. It's a very unique property. So getting these consultants to want to do this project has been a little challenging just because it is an in-depth. I have my 3rd interview, which they're going to be produced. Everyone is going to have something to me before the next June meeting as to what a feasibility study looks like to repurpose that center. There have been some discussions from the city and Assemblyman Jones's office looking for the county to. There was some money that was given to make the former daycare facility the police academy. The county is not willing to guarantee that that will stay the police academy, nor do I think that they should. Because if a developer comes there and wants to do something, they should be able to have free reign to do whatever the feasibility study shows will work. So we should have that proposed feasibility studies, all 3 of them in hand by the next June meeting.
So how does that relate to BOCES interested in the manufacturing?
So likely so that it has to stay the IAM. That was the state's, like, we gave you all this money, that's staying the IAM no matter what. The folks I've talked to on the consultant side, I've made that very clear to them that that has to be factored into it. I strongly believe, and in talking with the consultants, that the landscape of that can kind of be changed, that the IAM is just kind of its own thing and the rest of it will be whatever. It won't have anything to do with the other property that is there, but it will remain, it will belong to the county. The county will likely lease it to whoever decides to run it. So that's kind of where the discussions are at right now.
So just following the thread a little bit further or farther, how is Clinton County or Clinton Community College integrating with Plattsburgh State? Do we
How?
any of that?
You probably could do better stuff than I can.
It's not really integrating with they're sharing their service, not the services, but the facilities, but the programs are separate because the community college programs are different regulations and requirements set at state level versus a 4-year program. They're governed differently, so on and so forth. But it's creating, probably the best way to look at it is combining for efficiencies. And as Molly mentioned, then the properties, would have to have purpose to, transition. So food services, bookstore, unused facilities at Plattsburgh State, which is, a lot of.
Because both of them have seen declining enrollment,
Yeah.
It's not just Clinton, both
Right.
of them. So, I mean, I just, you can see it when I drive during my lunch break, you used to be, you couldn't get through that, and now it's, the traffic is not there.
Well, I think it's all across the state, even the country.
It's the country. I mean,
That's the way it's going. That's what we continue to look, but the perception, and one of the things that's on the board, as you talked about, this is the first time anyone's done this. So the concept of where the borders are, and coming up with ideas. I mean, we've got everything from retired faculty members making suggestions on how to use the property and so on and so
Oh, yeah,
forth.
I hear them all the time.
But I think there's fundamental concepts of, I brought up one with the police training center and so on and so forth. So it's, how does that fit? But then there's also some other ideas about consolidating some of the county services on some of the buildings too, that might be very good.
I don't think the legislature is going to be in favor of anything like that. I think what they're looking to do is that if it were to occur, this would be the worst case scenario, that nothing happens there in 5 years. I think the county would re-examine that proposal. But what they would like to see is something that is going to generate tax revenue. So putting the county offices there doesn't do anything for us, right? So that's for the IDA. I think that's where we come in, right? Because ultimately we want to see tax revenue there, because that's how we're gonna get a pilot at this. So, because I would assume that any developer that's gonna come in there is going to need or want a pilot to make it happen.
So I think that we're writing our script as we go pretty much.
Yeah.
Plan to-
Kind of, yeah.
So first brought that, what about the Nova bus situation?
I don't have any good news on that front.
Nothing much going on.
Any conversations that I am aware of, I'm not really privy to those, just because they don't have anything to do with the IDA, but, as far as I'm aware, Gary has kind of been spearheading those conversations, and it seems as though Volvo has kind of put a halt to any kind of purchase or anything there, because they don't see other competitors with it, is my understanding. Yeah.
Then the changes. Plattsburgh State's got one, like red K, white face, I know there's a couple forms.
There are 2 vacant dorms, I believe.
And they're tower forms, right?
And they're looking at the CV, the physician's hospital visit too. Okay. Right?
I think all those are being discussed. I don't know the exact level, how serious each one, but I think there's also, there's a collaborative between.
I was gonna say, they've built like a task force that
Yeah.
includes like faculty and administration, and it's being spearheaded by Ken Kennelly and who at Clinton.
Well, I think it's primarily,
Carrie?
I think it's carried to an extent, and probably David and the president have been
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
To just spearhead, because we went through just nothing else, we went through middle states, and we just, went through middle states, the approvals for all the programs, all the accreditations. So you don't want to have any college that doesn't have accreditation, because then people, so,
St. Rose just went through this.
Yeah.
So there's-
so, and that's what we want to maintain, just like Plattsburgh State wants to and so on, but then they had to actually, it's interesting, come through this process, to change the address required middle state's approval, so it's just things of that nature, just trying to get to the point when they're looking at the impact to it. And, we just went through, the budget process, there's funding there for at least another year's worth of college and so on and so forth. The fund balance not counting what would actually come in, but, the hope is that there's, there's positives with, networking on campus. And surprisingly, some of the students wanted to be at Plattsburgh State, but then have the opportunity to get a 2-year degree. Their 2-year degree, which they does something similar, right? With some of the others.
They do.
So they.
The difference though is that
or they-
SUNY Canton started as a community college. Plattsburgh can't go backwards, so they have to incorporate.
But the matriculation agreements, we've already had those in place, just help support transition, help out both.
So when will the move?
Next
physically
fall.
take
That's
Next fall.
Next fall.
They should be attending classes and classes at Plattsburgh next fall. Should, the October.
And there's been some discussions about funding from the state to help renovate some buildings to make them usable for the transition. That's all. I think it's going well.
Seems like they might need parking as well.
You know, it's hard to say yet the timing on when classes are, all that stuff. I mean, I know it's in this field. I remember St. Lawrence with my daughter, you know, if you're an athlete, you had early morning classes, if you had something else, when you didn't miss it, you had to leave the day. I don't know what type of things are.
And I would say, actually, parking probably isn't an issue because SUNY Plattsburgh has seen such a decline that, you know, they're used to being able to accommodate more students than what they have right now.
6,000.
Something, yeah.
I don't know what they're at now. I think
Yeah.
it's less than that. but-
Yeah. It's quite a bit less, from what I understand. I mean, this is kind of a win-win for both of the institutions.
Okay. Well, thank you.
No problem. So as far as my, executive director's report, just two things I wanted to touch on. And I'm gonna let Chris maybe jump in too. But, you know, we had a discussion with CJ. The taxing jurisdictions asked the following. The county would like the company, and I was clear, by the way, with Schluter, that this is not the desire of the IDA board, that this is what the taxing jurisdictions are asking for. And we are trying to be better stewards of being, you know, in touch with our taxing jurisdictions to find out how they feel about a project rather than just moving along without their input. So, you know, we were clear that, you know, benefiting the project was not dependent on whether the company was going to satisfy the taxing jurisdiction's request. So the county has requested that the company forego their sales tax exemption. So they would still get the state tax exemption, but not the county sales tax exemption. Both the school district and the town, town not so much, but because they, you know, the town doesn't have property taxes, so they're not necessarily truly impacted by this, but they do have highway taxes. And, you know, they have mentioned, you know, that there's going to be significantly more traffic on this road. So, but particularly the school is looking for a host community agreement outside of the pilot, which is the things that we've been starting to talk about, because they get impacted through their tax cap. So, I miss anything, Chris?
No, and I mean, it started out, to be blunt, the call started off a little rough, trying to explain to CJ. He thought we were taking the sales tax exemption entirely off the table, which we said, no, it's only the local portion. You still get, you know, you're still gonna get a state tax, sales tax exemption. And then on the pilot, I think he had experience or had some idea of what a host community agreement was in a different context. These things are all over the map with different energy companies and different entities over the years. So it's not one size fits all. And we said, look, you know, the host community agreement, you're going to pay the same amount you would under the pilot agreement. It just helps the school district more if it's under a host community agreement rather than being a party to the pilot. So once he kind of understood that he's, you know, still going to make the same payment to the school district, just in a different format, he, you know, I think Molly, I think he understood it better and was
Yeah.
more amenable to the concept. But
I don't know how he, you know, always has to talk to the company about how they feel about, I don't think the host community agreement is going to be an issue as long as they're paying the same amount.
Right.
I'm not so sure about the sales tax.
Why does the county not like it?
Well, I wasn't gonna say that, but
Like it's just-
I mean, I think it's that the county feels that they're getting such a significant benefit and that this is kind of their way of getting their own kind of host community agreement, if that makes any sense, because they feel that, you know, if they're willing to give this 15-year pilot and go without any tax generation for 5 years, that they should be able to get some sort of financial compensation.
Well said.
We walked quite a line.
I get a good teacher. I get a real good teacher. It's almost like I worked in politics for 5 years.
so CJ is looking for an example of a host community agreement. We have a bunch of those from different deals. We'll but again, they're not cookie cutter, one size fits all. The ones I can send him, I'll try to find one that's closer to this concept of just, you know, just specific to the pilot money going in this host community agreement rather than the pilot. But we'll talk with CJ on that.
Yeah, and we do think this is kind of the movement going forward because the school districts have been lobbying across the state very hard about, they're just railing against IDAs because it impacts their tax cap so drastically. So I feel like if we can be a partner and get ahead of the game in that, we might as well. So, and
How
that
does
we,
it affect their tax cap?
so it affects them when they roll off, when the pilot rolls off, they get this large jump, right, in tax revenue, so it throws their tax cap into and that's very layman's terms because I have a hard time wrapping my brain around it as well, but that's how I understood it. So, and the county doesn't have an issue with that, right, because the county is a partner in every single IDA transaction. So the county has an ebb and flow, so it won't impact their tax cap, but a school district might only be party to one every 5 years.
So does this make the assumption though that the pilot has been already approved by the IDA before the host community year of the school? Because how else do you know how much the school is gonna get to negotiate a host community if you've already negotiated a pilot with them? So say we negotiate a pilot and we say, we're gonna give you this amount of dollars and so much goes to the school.
Right.
If you don't already know that amount, how do you?
Right, so we would want to know that amount, right?
That-
Because
that's
that's where the IDA is trying to take different steps. We want to talk to the companies first before they negotiate anything outside of a pilot. Right, Chris?
I just don't know.
Yes.
How that works if a company goes and does that first.
Well, we prefer them not to.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. No, I understand that.
I think it's a matter of us making sure that, educating our municipal partners to say, listen, if you're gonna negotiate these, we want to talk to them first.
Yeah, I mean, if it helps. the
We're
school,
helping
then
you, so
yeah.
help us help you,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, any other questions? Do you have anything to add on the Schluter stuff, Chris?
No, I mean, obviously it sounds like a great project. One of three humongous projects for the IDA, so
Yep,
certainly
agreed.
good things are coming.
So we'll let you know what CJ circles back with, what the company is willing to accept. And again, I could not be more clear that I indicated to all the taxing jurisdictions that this was not the IDA asking this, that we are simply being good stewards to our municipalities being impacted by these pilots, and that their decision on this would likely not impact whether the project was benefited or not. Just one other thing, Chairman, is that not on the report, but last week was Economic Development Week, and I used that opportunity to finally get our videos from Boyer Benner out there. So if you haven't seen them, go watch them, like them, share them, follow the page, and I'm gonna keep using that more. I spent maybe like $150 in promoting those ads, but trying to get it out there so people understand what it is that we do, how we do it, so that we can kind of swell some of these ridiculous nonsense.
Okay, anything else for the IDA meeting? If not, may I get a motion to adjourn? Okay, second, John. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. I'll call the Benton County Capital Resource Corporation meeting to order at 12:55. Declare a quorum, waive the reading of the notice of the meeting as well as the reading of the minutes, and ask for a motion to approve. Dave, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mark? Treasury report.
Okay, the treasury report for the CCCRC. Income, the organization received $100 from NFI in April. Expenses, the organization paid Guam in March, $250 in April. End of report.
Any questions for Mark? Can I get a motion to approve the treasury report? Joey, John, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. No old business. The new business is just the audit bill. and get a motion to approve the paying of,
I'll make a motion.
John, Mark, second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Any other business?
None, Chair.
If not, may I get a motion to adjourn? Mark, Dave, second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Shannon.
Have a good day.
Our pleasure. Have a good one.
You guys.